Well, it's time to bring in my panel now, Independent MP Tanya Mihalich and former New South Wales Police Minister David Elliot. Great to see both of you. Let's start with the polling, though, that has come out just before we came on air, and it's pretty much remained unchanged. This is under resolve. So we've got Labor at 28%, One Nation 26%, and the Coalition at 23%. What's your first response when you hear those numbers?
In this video, you are about to find out why Australia's political class is losing its own voters in real time and why nobody in Canberra seems to notice. I have a favour to ask. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please take a second to do that now. You done? Thank you so much. Now, let's continue.
Well, it seems that the numbers haven't changed now for the last few months. There's certainly a big move towards One Nation. Both Labor and the Coalition are hurting as a result. So it seems like there's a bit of an anti-establishment mood right now in Australia, and it's here to stay.
The interesting thing, David, that did come out with this polling was they were asked who the preferred Liberal leader would be. Now, Angus Taylor was ahead on 30%, Andrew Hastie 10%, Tim Wilson on 5%. But 56% of those that were asked were undecided.
Well, they were looking for Josh Frydenberg's name. But it's quite clear that you can't become Prime Minister on a Liberal Prime Minister with 30% of people wanting you to be the leader. And, of course, he's winning. That's the highest number. But the reason why our polling isn't moving is because they're not inspired by the leadership. And no matter what Angus Taylor does, right or wrong, some things I like what he's doing, sometimes I disagree with what he's doing, but it just ain't moving. And it hasn't moved for months. So
you think this is they need someone like a Josh Frydenberg to come in?
Yeah.
I think if you remove Angus Taylor right now before the next election, that is going to be suicide for the Liberals.
Well, it's been done before. I mean, you know, Bob Hawke famously came in. Campbell Newman came in from outside the Parliament and had a thumping victory. So it's been done before. I'm not advocating a change now, but it is 18 months. And if we want to lose even more seats, particularly to One Nation, well, then people need to accept the fact that is what's going to happen.
Tanya, let's look at some of the legislation that has been announced today in New South Wales, and this is around the buyback scheme when it came to the guns. Now, I don't think it's surprising that New South Wales signed up, and we think that Chris Minns was the first one to come out with this idea, and then Albanese sort of jumped on it and wanted to make it a national buyback result. Do you think this is the right solution for what we saw in Bondi, or is this almost a scapegoat in a way for those that have done the right thing with their guns, that they're going to have to bring them back, and we're going to not be focusing on the real issue here, which is the Islamic extremism, and instead we're focusing on this gun buyback?
Yeah, and remember, Minns originally brought this, obviously, after the tragedy in Bondi, very quickly into Parliament. And told us there was a lot of urgency to this gun buyback scheme. And 11 months later, it still hasn't been implemented. It's now going to be implemented in November. Interestingly, states like Queensland and Victoria have rejected the idea of it, which says a lot. I was one of the MPs as part of the right-wing crossbench that actually voted against it. The Nationals also voted against it. The Liberals voted with Labor and the Greens to support it. I understand a lot of people it's a very sensitive issue. It was a complete and utter tragedy what happened in Bondi, but like you rightly alluded to, it was because of radical Islam and terrorism why Bondi happened. It's not because of law-abiding citizens who own guns. And I think ultimately what this scheme is going to do is punish people, primary producers, people out in the farms in regional New South Wales. It's not going to mean that a bunch of people who are, trading in illegal tobacco or drug dealers or part of organised crime are not going to suddenly turn up to the police station and go, here you are, here's my gun, I'm so happy to submit it back. What it will mean is that law-abiding citizens in Australia, particularly obviously in New South Wales, are going to be hurt. They're going to lose money out of it. The scheme itself is something like it's going to cost $1 billion for taxpayers. But even then, will it really compensate the people that own guns? Probably not. But look, there's still a lot of detail to, I think, unpack with this. So I think $450 for an air rifle. And when's the last time an air rifle was involved in a fatal shooting? So there's a lot to sort of unpack with the detail here. I understand there is support for this. Traditionally, there's always been a support for these schemes post a tragedy. We saw that with Port Arthur and so forth back in when Howard announced it years ago. But this time I don't think there's the same support out in the community. I think people are questioning whether this is really necessary.
What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, I like the idea of a cap. I think that's very important because there's no reason for people to have 50, 60 guns. I think Chris Minns is allowing his emotions to dictate this policy, and I like him for it. I think that's great. That's every father would allow their emotion to run the gauntlet on this sort of policy. It's not practical. I know when I was police minister, it was made very clear to me it is not practical to have New South Wales have one law and Queensland and Victoria have other laws, because you just cannot have a copper at every border crossing and say, can I please have a look in your boot to see if you've got guns that you're bringing over into the new jurisdiction, into another jurisdiction. So my advice to Chris would be, mate, love what you're doing. Every father in the country does. However, it's not practical.
The latest Resolve poll has Labor sitting on 28%, One Nation right behind on 26%, and the Coalition trailing on 23%. Read that again. The so-called major parties are being chased down by a minor party, and the numbers have not moved in months. That is not voter apathy, that is voter revolt. Inside the Liberal Party, the picture gets worse. Angus Taylor polls at just 30% as preferred leader, Andrew Hastie at 10%, Tim Wilson at 5%, and a staggering 56% of people simply do not know or do not care. Former New South Wales Police Minister David Elliot put it bluntly, 30% is not enough to win a Prime Ministership. Replacing Taylor before the next election would be political suicide, but standing still might be slower suicide. Now let's talk about guns, because this is where the cracks really show. After the tragedy at Bondi, Premier Chris Minns rolled out a gun buyback scheme and Prime Minister Albanese took it national. Queensland and Victoria refused to sign on, New South Wales did. Independent MP Tanya Mihalik voted against it, and her argument cuts deep. The Bondi attack was driven by radical extremism, not by a farmer's licensed rifle in a locked safe. She says the policy punishes law-abiding regional Australians, while career criminals, the ones actually driving organised crime, simply keep their illegal weapons. Compensation offers as low as $450 for a firearm have not exactly inspired confidence either. Think of it like fixing a leaking roof by repainting the walls. It looks like action, it feels like progress, but the water is still coming in. That is the gap between a policy built on emotion and a policy built on evidence. Elliot agrees the intent is compassionate. He even says any father would feel the same instinct after Bondi, but he calls the execution impractical, especially when state laws do not line up and police can't even check every vehicle crossing a border. What we are watching is bigger than one poll or one policy. It's a crisis of trust, a demand for leaders who can be compassionate without abandoning common sense and accountable without chasing headlines. Substance is what rebuilds legitimacy, not spectacle. I appreciate you for taking time to watch this. Stay safe and let's make this nation a better place. Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments below.